Welcome back to the story of my life. Last I left off where I was talking about coming home from foster care, and we were in Somerville, Massachusetts at these projects that were out there. Shout out to whoever still lives there. I was going to this brand new elementary school out there that they had just finished building and opened. So all the kids from the neighborhood that had been previously attending different elementary schools in the area, whoever wanted to come to the school, the new school that had opened, there were just kids from all different schools combined at this place. So everybody was new. And for the first time since we moved to America, we weren't the new kids. Everybody was new with us. It was like a refreshing feeling to like start the first day of school at this place. I think I was going into 4th grade at this point. It was such a great feeling to like walk to school with my sister, and everyone didn't know the drill. Everybody was like learning along with us the new protocols, meeting these teachers for the first time. The building was like fresh, everything was clean. It was such a different experience from all the other schools that we had attended up until this point. And finally, it seemed like we were stable with my mom. But of course, there was a catch. After we find out that my father had died and got over like the initial shock of it, and readjusting to basically being with my mother outside of a battered woman's shelter atmosphere. Like we were finally just on our own. I think we were okay. I think we were coping as good as we could. My sister started to get her Korean language back because my mom was just like, oh no, I'm not having this. You can't forget your language. Me and my mother, we worked very hard to surround my sister with Korean language all day long. Like at school, my mom was like, speak Korean to her, don't speak English around the other kids. At home, it was just constantly like, speak Korean in the house. Korean, Korean, Korean. And my mother always spoke to us in Korean no matter what. So it was just like, if you didn't understand what she said, oh well. Figure it out. Context clues, bitch. So I was emotionally as okay as I had ever been. Like that was the most okay that I was after I moved to America, and just adjusting, knowing like life is gonna be different from this point on. And then one day my mom was like, yeah, so I want you guys to meet my friend. Apparently her friend was this guy. Let's just call him Noor, because that's his actual name. This person, I don't mind naming them because they're a fucking criminal that needs to be thrown in jail. Probably nothing has ever happened to this person since we've been around them. And he's not someone I would ever feel like I have to protect, because shame on him. This person, who I hadn't yet met, my mom was like, yeah, I have a friend. He helped me find you guys, and I want you to meet him. But I'm pretty sure he was our boyfriend, and she just didn't know how to tell us because we had never experienced our mother having a boyfriend other than my dad. So I was excited that she was excited. I'm like, oh, this person is helping you. He got our family back together somehow. I don't know how, but okay, that's what's up. He's been helping you get on your feet. That he was from New York and that he would be coming to visit and staying with us for a weekend. So I was genuinely excited. I think I had talked to him on the phone. He didn't sound too bad over the phone. So I was like, yeah, let's meet him. I kid you not. Like, this memory is as vivid to me as something that just happened to me 5 minutes ago. Like, there's another moment I will never forget in my life. When he walked through the door and was just standing there, I had the most sinking feeling in my heart. I watch true crime documentaries a lot, and I'll hear people talking about something that happened to them that was traumatic or whatever, and like when they talk about the person who turned out to be the murderer, sometimes you'll find people that say, as soon as I laid eyes on him, I could sense the evil coming off of him. Like I knew something was wrong with this person. That sounds insane until you go through that, until you have that experience, but that is exactly how I felt when I met him at 9 or 10 years old. That's how I felt. As soon as he walked through the door, I just felt like really uneasy. My heart sank. I felt fear. I felt scared. And I almost like, you know how you ever hear someone say, oh, I can see your aura. It was like that. It was like this energy around him. It was like I could see something around him that was just dark and ominous and dangerous. And I had never felt like that before about anyone. I don't know why or how I could feel that, but it was real and it shocked me. I felt horrible that I had that feeling of, of dis-ease, and I was just looking at him and didn't react. I just froze. And then it took somebody, my mom or him, maybe saying like hello or something like that, and I snapped out of it and then was like, oh, hi, like trying to greet him and be polite, but I was completely faking it. Dear Lord. Wow. This brings me into my story about emotional, mental, sexual abuse. Yes, if you are going to be triggered by any of these topics, just stop watching now. I'm telling you now, there's going to be parts to this video because I can't get all of this out in one video. But he, at the time, claimed that he was 28 years old. He looked much older to me. My mother was older, of course. She was in her 30s. It turned out that he was from Morocco. He was fluent in English, Spanish, French, Arabic. He was a Muslim. Relax. The stuff that he was doing had nothing to do with his religion, even though for a long time I did blame Islam for a lot of the stuff that I experienced with him, and I actually had a really huge prejudice against Muslims for that reason. After meeting my husband, who was a Muslim, doing my own research about Islam, I learned that nothing he did with us was ever anything condoned by that religion. And if anything, that religion completely shuns in females being mistreated. I didn't know that at the time. So this was the only exposure I had had to Islam or anybody who was like a Muslim that was close to us. So this was my impression of Muslims all around. So those of you who have biases against people of a certain background, color, religion, or family life, like people who were raised by two moms or two dads or something like that, really evaluate why you feel the way that you feel, because it's not fair for an entire community to be demonized because a couple of people who belong to those groups or claim that they do things in the name of that group that are completely against what the group preaches. It's not fair, and you may be missing out on some really awesome people in your life because you're letting these prejudices hold you back. That's something I had to learn the hard way. So anyway, I don't blame myself for feeling the way that I felt back then, but I know better, so I had to change my mindset about people that I was judging based on their religion. So Noor's background was that he had somehow immigrated to the United States from Morocco and France. And he claimed he was a college student. I say claim allegedly when it comes to this guy because I don't know what was the truth. So many things about him didn't add up that I, to this day, don't know what was the truth. I just know what I heard. I just know how he presented himself. So don't hold me to that. My mom claimed that the way that she met him was that she was walking down the street in Cambridge and he approached her and said, "Oh, how are your daughters doing?" And at that time, because my mother was going through this mental collapse, when she was hospitalized, I guess they had given her medication thinking it would help her, but she had an adverse reaction to the meds. She lost a huge chunk of her memory, and she was trying to regain her memory at that time. So she had stopped going to the hospital and getting any kind of treatment for her mental health. Maybe that medicine was the wrong kind or the wrong dose, but that doesn't mean there isn't a different kind of medicine that would have worked for her that she just never tried. And she automatically thought, well, because we have been living in Cambridge for some time, maybe we know him, maybe he knows us from somewhere, and maybe he knows my daughters. She didn't just brush him off like she normally would have. And he was like, yeah, the little mixed girls, right? And she was like, yeah, like, how does he know my daughters? It turns out that he would see my mom and us walking around town all the time because we had no car, so we were always on foot. And you know, you frequent the same places that you normally go to, your routine places that you go to, and we were going to school out there and stuff. So I think he just spotted us from in the neighborhood. What was he doing in Massachusetts at that time? I don't know, because supposedly he lived in New York, but his claim was that he would come back and forth to Massachusetts because he had family out there and he would be coming to visit his family. But they weren't really people that were related to him. They were his like Muslim, brothers, who he was like close to, like his friends that he calls brothers. He was really just coming to like socialize with them. So he'd just be lurking in a Porter Square, wherever it was that we were hanging out at in Cambridge, and he would see us. This was how he was familiar with us, but he didn't really know us. Convinced my mom that he was going to help her to get me and my sister back. She said that they had devised a plan where he was going to help her track down where we were staying so she could kidnap us from our foster families and like run off someplace with us. Can you imagine if they had actually pulled that off? Like, my mother would be a fugitive. Like, she'd probably be in jail to this day when they finally caught up to her, because they would have, but, you know. She wasn't thinking straight at that time, so she just went along with whatever it was that he was presenting to her. She needed his help as far as like trying to find a place to live, establish some sort of benefits, income, and stuff like that, because the foster care system was actually siphoning my mom's benefit money to pay them back for keeping me and my sister there for a year. Like, they were collecting child support from her. How ridiculous is that? You take her kids away, and then you're demanding that she pay child support? You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's in a situation where she's like in poverty. Like, she's running away from an abusive husband. Did you guys not get the memo? What the fuck is wrong with the foster care system? She's trying to survive with her kids. So I totally don't blame her for falling for the charms of this guy who clearly was a predator. She had no way of knowing that at that time. My mom also, she's very naive. Like, she comes from a place where there isn't so much of this overt dysfunctional stuff going on in society in Korea. Like, I'm sure it exists, but it's just not overtly talked about, so people don't know that these kinds of things happen to people. I don't think that she was able to confide in her family members about this stuff, because I think she felt ashamed. I think she was very sad. I had a conversation with one of my aunts recently where she said that my mother had called them in a frenzy, completely out of the blue, saying, like, they hadn't heard from her in years. She was like, oh, my kids are in foster care and I have to get them back. I can't get into the details, but anyways, I'll figure it out. It's gonna be okay. And they were like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean your kids are in foster care? What do you mean you don't have your kids? Because me and my sister were like the jewels of our family. We were the first two grandkids, you know? After all this time, effort, love, care, affection they have put into us before we moved to America, they're thinking, well, they're in good hands. She's like, yeah, my husband died. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? So they were just in complete shock. They didn't know how to react. They didn't know how to help. They didn't know what to do. And then my mother was just being really vague and not giving them much detail. She didn't have a phone. She didn't have like a phone number they could call her and check up on her. So they really just relied on her getting in contact with them. And then he found a vulnerable target and was able to do things because of that, because my mom was very vulnerable and she needed to trust someone. She needed someone in her corner. She needed a team to help her. I don't remember if I told my sister about this. I'll have to ask her and see if she remembers any of it. I'm still young. I'm like 9-10 years old at this time, in 4th grade. I remember him insisting that we show him physical affection, and like if he would get us a present or something like that, he always insisted that my mom force us to hug him or like sit on his lap a lot, because he convinced her that in his culture, that's how you show gratitude, respect to your elders. And again, because we come from a culture of high importance being put on playing your role in the family unit, I don't think my mother thought that that was unusual. She was like, oh, that's how they do things in their country. She thought that was the Moroccan way. So to show him respect, because he's helping her take care of her kids, he didn't live with us. He was just visiting. She would always insist that we like greet him with a hug, give him a kiss on the cheek, sit on his lap, put our arms around him. And like, by this point, you're 9-10 years old. You're not too old to sit on the lap of your dad, but you are too old to sit on the lap of a complete stranger. What the hell? Like, it didn't feel right, you know? And then the way that he would like wrap his arms around our waist when we would sit on his lap. Normally when you hug kids, you hold them in their middle. So your hands are between their chest and their waist, like around their stomach, I guess. That's like the normal way that most people hold kids. He would hold our thighs or like our hips. It wasn't around the middle. And that placement of his hands being lower on my body felt dirty. Like, it felt gross. It felt like ill. Like, why are you holding me like this? It didn't feel right. It was with his hands. He would grab us by the waist or the thigh, and his hands would be on us. Like, he would just be like resting his hands on these body parts that didn't feel right being touched by other people. If you're watching this and what I'm saying is triggering a memory, triggering something that you feel happening to you now, that's a warning. That's a red flag. Don't ignore that feeling. Tell somebody. Go tell somebody. And I remember telling my mom I felt uncomfortable, like hugging him. Like I just felt like it was unnecessary. Like I don't like the way he holds us. I don't like it. And she actually got mad at me and was like, be patient. Like, you don't understand his culture. Don't be so quick to judge and just take everything the wrong way. He doesn't mean anything by it. That's just how they show affection there. So I'm trying to trust my mom because she's my mom, but I'm like, it still doesn't feel right. Whatever, just put up with it. 5th grade was coming to an end. My mother suggested that we go on summer vacation with Noor to Brooklyn, where he lived. So we went with Noor to New York in his studio apartment in Brooklyn. So the first real incident that alarmed me in a way that was like panic was when we were at his house. I don't know if this was even like the first day we were there or if we had already been there for multiple days. It was shortly after getting there. Well, he had a studio apartment, so it was only one room, which was the bedroom, the living room, the dining room. It was all of the above. And then a very small kitchen where you could only stand in the kitchen. Only one person could stand inside the kitchen. There was a bathroom that was separated by a closet. So it was the studio, the closet, and then inside the closet was the door to the bathroom. That was it. That was the whole space in the apartment. That apartment was probably not even, it was probably like 600 square feet, if that. The only space that he had for a bed was one, probably like a full or a queen size mattress. And then there was another twin size mattress that was on a different wall in the room. He insisted that me and my sister sleep in the bigger bed because there were 2 of us, and then that I think he was implying he would sleep in the twin, but a lot of times he would lay in the bed with both of us, in the middle of us, with each of us on one side of him. And he would start to say things that sounded completely bizarre. Like he would mention these thoughts that he had about marrying all of us, like me, my mom, and my sister. And I would be like, well, you can't do that. You can only marry one person. Like, what are you talking about? And he'd be like, oh no, you can. In my culture, you can marry more than one person. But again, here we go. See, this guy would say that according to his culture or according to Islam, he can do certain things. Well, yes, Muslims can marry multiple people, but they have strict guidelines of things they have to follow in order for that to happen, which most people can't follow, so they just don't do it. The people who can follow it are usually rich people, because one of the criteria for being able to marry more than one person is that, and only the men can, because the men are financially responsible for females in according to that religion. So it's your duty as the male to be responsible financially. Females can work, they can make money, but they're not obligated to give any of the money they make towards the household or to their man. You can't marry more than one person unless you can take care of them. And then number 2, even if you could marry them because financially you're able to do it, you cannot marry a set of sisters. You cannot marry a set of mother and her children. So I think he just felt like he could just say whatever he wanted and we'd believe him. Gross. Like, it's so disgusting that he would say these things to a child. He told me that if a girl's coochie feels moist, that means that she likes the way that the guy around her is making her feel. He's telling me this while he's trying to dig in between my legs with his hands while I'm laying in the bed trying to sleep. He's like digging between my legs and trying to split my legs open so he can put his fingers in between. I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, your body gets moist because you're sweating. Sometimes it gets moist because mucus just comes out of it. Like, your hormones are changing. You're going through puberty. It's many reasons why a female would be moist, which an adult male who's claiming he's 28 years old would know. I don't even know why that's even a conversation topic to him, but instead of thinking of all the other possible reasons, his first thought is, let me point out the sexual reason why a woman would feel moist. You know what I'm saying? Is he trying to imply that I like him digging between my legs or laying in this bed with me? Like, you're a grown-ass man and I cannot get away from you and my mom is not here. Like, where the fuck am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? Who am I gonna go to? There's nothing I can do but just endure this and hope it's gonna be over soon so that I can figure something else out. So I was disgusted. I'm like, is this asshole trying to imply that I somehow have some kind of sexual feelings towards him? Because one, I don't. And two, if he really thought that, how fucked up is he that he's dating my mom while knowing that her daughter has some kind of feelings towards him? That's gross. Like, why would you do that? So I'm like telling myself something ain't right. Like, he's not right. This is wrong. Something is wrong. He's trying to molest me. Yeah, it's official. Like, this weird feeling that I had about him, this was the feeling. This was why I was feeling like this about him, because he had very impure intentions towards me and my sister, and now he's acting on them because my mom isn't here. That's what the feeling was. It was a warning to stay away from him. There is no question. If he's doing it to me, he's definitely gonna try it to my sister, and she's younger than me, so I'm like, no, I have to protect us. I'm telling my mom in Korean, I'm like, Mom, something's not right. You need to come get us now. And she's like, what's your problem? I'm like, something's not right. Like, I didn't know how to explain to her because it wasn't some severe act. This is the thing, you guys. Unless somebody is raping you, unless somebody is, you know, straight up like ambushing you, like violating your body parts in a very, very clear way. I think when people do little sneaky things, it's difficult to pinpoint what it is. It's difficult to label it as molestation. At that stage, it's just a feeling. They haven't done enough for, I guess, for you to like take them to court over it. There's no way to prove it. It's just like he said, she said. It's hard to explain, especially if you've never gone through that or ever talked about that with your parent. It's hard to express what's happening. All you can do is say, I don't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. I'm saying this so that those of you who are watching this, it's not even so much for the people who are going through it, because those of you who are going through it, you know what the fuck is going on. It's the people around them that are oblivious, that are telling themselves it's not a big deal, that are telling themselves they're imagining it, they're telling themselves that's not what's happening, or maybe don't even realize what's happening even though that person's trying to give them signs. You need to pay better attention. You need to trust your children. It's better safe than sorry. You need to remove that child from that situation first and then deal with the aftermath later. You don't have to call the police if you feel like it's not something that's concrete enough to like bring the law into it, but you need to immediately remove that child out of that situation where possible, because you don't know where this could lead. And trust me, as you guys hear more stories coming up, it leads to somewhere worse and worse and worse. I'm trying to explain to my mom, like, shit ain't right. Like, you need to come get us. She wasn't getting it. Like, she just didn't understand what I was trying to say. I think she felt like they just miss me. They are shocked that they're away from me for too long, and they're already traumatized by foster care. And my mother and us, we had this fear of the foster care system at this point. We were scared of Department of Social Services. We thought any little thing that they don't think is normal, they'll separate us. And that was our worst fear at that time. And I think this person knew that, and he would hang that over us as a threat of saying, like, if you guys go running around making weird, claims to people, they're gonna think you're the nutcases. They're gonna remove you guys from the household, and you will be separated from your mom. You'll be separated from each other, and you'll have to go through the whole ordeal of foster care again, and you may not even make it back to your mom. At your own risk, run your mouth if you want to. So that was like an actual threat that was looming over us at that time, that we did not want to be separated. And I think my mother was in deep denial because she felt like she didn't want to believe that she had picked this predator to be around her two children and was unable to protect us from him. And if we went to authorities or our teachers or someone and complained about it and they took us serious, there was a high likelihood that she would lose us again. So she was determined to basically shoot the whole idea down. Like, that's not what's happening. You guys are misinterpreting something. Maybe he just doesn't realize that you guys aren't familiar with how they do things in Morocco, and you're just taking it the wrong way. Why would he do that? He's a good person. He wouldn't do that. He helped me get you guys back. Why would he just put you in jeopardy again after he did all of that? But the reality is he helped her get us back so he could put us in jeopardy. Because he's a predator. He wanted to abuse us. So he would just say things like that. He would pull things like that, try to like touch me inappropriately. I don't know that I was scared for my safety at this point. I just didn't want to be in that situation anymore. And I was begging my mom to come back because I thought, well, maybe he's just doing this because my mom's not around. And also, this wasn't just happening to me. Like, everything he did to me, he did to my sister, and worse to my sister because she was younger and more vulnerable and more susceptible to believing his lies, and I feel he had more control over her mentally than me. I think my Asperger's protected me from not processing these situations the same way the average child would have. I didn't believe a word he said. Like, I never thought that any of his threats were real, other than the foster care thing. I did think that there was a chance we could get separated from my mom, but I also felt like that threat isn't bad enough for me to keep quiet about what he's doing. There was a lot of butting heads because I was fighting back. I was standing up for myself. I was voicing my opinion. I was running my mouth to him and to my mom that this whole situation was wrong, and that all came later. But like, this is just the beginning part of it, like when it started. Somehow convinced my mom she had to hurry up and come to us, and then I realized when she came, this is not a visit, this is not a summer, this is a move. We left Somerville and we're relocated now we're New Yorkers. Thanks for the heads up. I had like a flashback of our move to America with no warning, leaving my dad with no warning, us jumping around from shelter to shelter with no warnings, getting thrown into foster care with no warning. There was no choice, no heads up, no preparation at all for any of the moves that we had made. That was becoming a pattern for us. I was like, oh, great, now I have to readjust to not only a move to a completely new town, a new environment, but to this person. Now they're the head of the house because this is his house that we're living in. We are dependent on him, and if we're not here, we're homeless. Now what? At this stage, I think I was not in touch with my father's side of the family yet. It was just us. We were isolated. Yeah, this was the beginning stages of how the molestation started, the emotional and mental abuse started. I'll just pick up where I left off in the next chapter, I guess. If you want to subscribe, do so. If you don't want to subscribe, that's fine. I do want you guys to try to mark this account in some way so that you'll remember to come back to it, because there are more things that I'm going to be talking about that may be of use to you, or that you may feel you want to chime in on. You know, you don't always remember, like, what was that channel again? It was good, but I didn't bother subscribing because I didn't want the notifications. So I understand. I do the same thing, but just whatever your way of doing that, screenshot or bookmark, please, so that you can come back to the channel and continue these conversations with me. You can follow me on Instagram if you'd like. If that will help you to remember my channel, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. It's me. I look at all the stuff that's on that on that Instagram, so you know, it's not like I'm gonna be like, oh, you're not talking about doll stuff, so I can't respond. Nah, it's the only place you can reach me on social media where I will interact with you. Like, I'm on Facebook and all of that stupid stuff, but I don't be on there like that. Yeah, that's the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Thanks for watching. Bye.